You are now listening to FNB Radio.
And welcome to FNB Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. My guest today not only has an extremely cool name that almost sounds like an alter ego, but she makes the most beautiful cakes. They stop me in my tracks. Aimee France, I can't believe you're here. I'm so happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
I mean, it's the world we live in, but I find these amazing things on Instagram, and I'm sure that's how a lot of people found you. But I'll just tell you how you came onto my radar as I saw an article. I think it was like The Strategist or something like that. There was like Chloe Savini's wedding cake was made by this person, and I started like following this rabbit hole and clicked on it and was like, I am shocked because I don't think I've looked at a cake in the last 15 years and been like, I've never seen that before. Do you know what I mean? Like the last time I can remember having that thought was when I lived in New York a long, long time ago. And when I saw the Milk Bar cakes, I was like, this bitch didn't put frosting on the side. And I was so like mind blown by that. And it was such a weird way to see the cake, just naked like that. And I thought it was just kind of taking something that people have been doing for years and been doing it in a specific way where it's kind of expected. But your cakes, if you're listening right now and you haven't seen them, you need to go to her page. It's Yungkombucha420, which is also a reason that I love you so much. I was like, just her Instagram handle alone is hilarious. But you need to go to the cake Instagram and see all of her work because you have to truly get your eyes on it to know what I'm talking about. But how on earth did you come up with a new way to frost cakes? I'm so curious.
I literally don't know. A lot of people talk about how I have a very specific aesthetic, and to me, I really don't see it, if that makes sense. I'm kind of just doing whatever is in my head. I don't use any tips for my piping bags. I literally just cut them open and put frosting in and just kind of pipe however I, whatever feels right in that moment.
That's it. But I mean,
Yeah.
But when you see them, do you see that they look different than other people's cakes? Because I totally get that that's just what comes out of you. I feel like any artist, whether it's music or food or whatever your medium is, you kind of can only make one expression, that's what you can do. So it's clearly so personal to you and your style. But I'm when you see them against other people's cakes,
no, yeah, I definitely see how they're different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So before the whole Chloe, somebody like Chloe Savini with the visibility like that, getting a cake from you, that changes the game. What was your situation before that happened? Because I was kind of stalking you. I went to your webpage and you have been putting out really cool stuff, really cool vegan recipes and kind of playing around with a couple of different food concepts and a zine, which I love because it's so punk rock and it's something that...
Oh my gosh, it's so old.
Yeah,
I always forget about that.
But you had you've been trying on a couple of different things before you landed on where you're at now. So kind of take us back to before you get this order from Chloe Savini and the internet kind of gets to know you that way. What was the sort of start for you in food?
Well, I think it was my sophomore year of college. My friends told me I should make a food account because I had a Finsta and I was just posting random, I was making my oatmeal in my dorm. That's what I was posting on there, and just weird things I would make with whatever was in the cafeteria. I would just kind of bring stuff home and then go to Whole Foods and then add stuff, and that's what I was posting. And then my friends were like, you should make a food Instagram account. So I did. And then I was just posting cursed food. It was if you go back, it's I'm oh my god, what the heck. But yeah, I've always been interested in food, so I was just doing that for fun. And then I guess when it all really started was kind of pre-COVID. I was getting more into baking and learning more about food because I had an apartment, I had a kitchen now. And then right before COVID happened, I was supposed to go home for a ski vacation. Literally the day before everything shut down,
No.
I was on the bus and I'm from New Hampshire, and I
Nice.
got home and then everything shut down that day, so I was stuck there. I guess I lucked out about like getting out of New York real quick.
Yeah.
But I was stuck there and I was in school, just kind of like I was supposed to have an internship at some point, so I made it my duty for the pandemic to just kind of like teach myself everything about baking. And since I had so much free time, I was like, I might as well just kind of document it all on Instagram. And then I gained a following during that time. And then fast forward to like August, I think, I was like, maybe I should try to sell some of my stuff. Because my whole thing was kind of like mimicking traditional baking to make like a really good vegan version of it because I used to be vegan. Um, and because like I don't know, every vegan dessert I had before was like gross, and it just like
They
wasn't
are.
it like wasn't what I wanted, you know? Like I
Yeah.
wanted something that like you couldn't tell was vegan. Um, and
Well,
that's like
I think when I think about vegan food, I'm like, it doesn't have to like be the traditional version of something, but just make something that's delicious that also
no,
happens
yeah,
to be vegan. You know what I mean? Like, I
exactly.
wish people would do more of that, and then instead of trying to like force it, and it's like it's not going to be the
Yeah.
same thing,
Or
but
like
just make it
healthify
awesome.
it in a
Right.
way. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, so then I decided to do a pop-up at Hester Street Fair. Um, and I sold out, and then I did another pop-up there, and then I had like a really long line and I sold out again. And then I was like, wait, maybe I could start doing pop-ups places. So then I just started doing pop-ups at like different places around the city. And during this time, like I was still gaining an Instagram following, and then I just started getting commissioned orders. Just everything was kind of like word of mouth through email. And then yeah, and then and then I was like doing that all while I was still in school, but everything was online, so I'd be like working, listening to my class as like a podcast. um, and then and then I graduated, and then I just kind of was like, well, it's time to get a job. Maybe I can do this full time. And
Wow.
then and then that's what I did. I just like had enough orders that I was able to do that. And then yeah, that's really what's been happening. I still do pop-ups like once in a while, but it's mostly commissioned cakes. And then I sell like little mini cakes too every week.
I know. I love those. I'm like so jealous. I don't live close enough to get one. But they. So, what were you studying in school? You were in school this whole time.
Communications.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you got out and like had this kind of accidental sort of career that you're, or for now that, you know, who knows what you'll do, but it's like, that's insane because most people I think were trying to figure out like how to find a job, and one just kind of found you in the middle of a really weird time.
Yeah.
Um, but I love what you're saying because the vegan aspect of it was another big question I had. Like, was that something, like I see you, some of the posts that you post now are not vegan, but I like that you offer vegan things because I'm kind of, and I think a lot of people in our like, I don't know, this space are trying to eat more plant focused and less meat. But at the same time, like I kind of dabble. I like sort of 80-20 it. Like I still definitely eat meat. And I love to cook. And that's like, I worked in Michelin star restaurants in New York and in Copenhagen and in California. And like, I love food so much, but I found myself kind of getting tired of everything being so heavy. I was specifically in French restaurants and I was just like, man, it's so hard to like eat that and then still feel good. So like, what is the driving force behind eating vegan? What was the choice for that? And then kind of where are you now with how you eat?
Well, I went vegan my junior year of high school. And that's like kind of how I got into cooking because my parents were like, well, you can go vegan, but
You can make the food yourself.
yeah, you're gonna cook the food yourself. Like, we're not making an entirely different meal for you. And I was like, okay. But like all my life, I've been like super independent, and I've always kind of like my mom cooked, but I always made food for myself, you know? Like, I've always been in the kitchen, like ever since I was very young. So yeah, I started cooking vegan food, whatever. I was vegan, um, up until probably my, I think it was like my junior year of No, senior year of college. And then I started to develop some health issues, not like blaming veganism for the health issues because it was more of like a very horrible situation that I was in, like that just like started to trigger anxiety.
Mm,
And yeah, I just like being vegan wasn't like the healthiest option, and I think everyone's body needs different things at different times. And like like when I was in high school, I was running track, like I was doing cheerleading, I was doing a lot of physical activity, like sports, and I was completely fine. But yeah, just as like time went by, it just like wasn't the right thing for me anymore, and I decided to start kind of like um, introducing animal products again. But also, it was like being vegan was starting to become a little bit of a career barrier because all of these things were happening to me in food, and I wanted to experiment more with vegan baking, but like to be able to mimic the textures and just like the science behind it, you really need to be able to taste what the real thing is like.
totally.
So I just like kind of decided that, I mean, like I do eat very plant-based now. I'm like, I guess I'm like you, like 80/20. Like I still like enjoy eating stuff, but I do feel the best when I'm eating like, mostly plant-based stuff. But yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like that too. Like I've kind of played around. I've never been full vegetarian because when I was, working in restaurants, it's like you say, you want to like try everything. Like the kind of the name of the game on your day off is to go out and like eat at a place and try everybody's food and
Yeah,
sort of get
exactly.
inspired and know what's going on. And it's really hard to do that. So I was always like, oh, I eat everything. Fast forward to like burning out and being in restaurant kitchens like that. Like my body started to go the opposite way. It was like, dude, you can't go out and eat like just you know, mortadella. Like you gotta like you gotta
Yeah.
rein it in and like you gotta so I started kind of eating to support how I felt instead of like what I wanted to do in my career. And I did like the reverse of you. And so I landed somewhere in the middle where now I feel good about how I eat. But there's like I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and there's a really great place here that makes vegan ice cream. It's called Off Track Ice Cream. And I was always like, I don't really want it if it's like vegan. I just won't have ice cream until I had theirs. And I was like, this is a game changer. Like the mouthfeel, the texture is there. It's not gross. It's not like weird and made. I'm sure there's oils in it, but it's not like just a bunch of oils. Cause that was another thing that was like kind of freaking me out about achieving the textures. But there's so much more that people know and do. And like, honestly, if I'm given the choice between having their ice cream and a more traditional ice cream, I'll pick theirs because not only does it taste better to me now that I've kind of developed a taste for it, but I feel amazing after. Like if I eat ice cream, then I'm kind of like short of breath, like want to go lay down or like whatever it is. But if I eat vegan ice cream, like, oh man, this is such a game changer. But the textures that you achieve, even with the vegan frostings, because I'm always like trying to guess when I see them. I'm like, which one's vegan, which one's not.
Hmm.
Um, they're stunning. So, how did you sort of? I'm just amazed that you don't have a culinary background because that sort of recipe testing and analysis and kind of retweaking recipes, you have to be so calculated in what you did the first time to be able to make the change to fix it the next time without wasting a ton of ingredients that cost money. And so, what was that process like when you were like, "Hey, I want to make a cake, but like, did you go for the aesthetic first, or were you just like, I just want to make a cake and we'll see how it turns out with vegan ingredients?
It was more like I want to make a cake with the vegan ingredients. Let's see how it comes out. But like I had recipes in mind that I'd like used in the past. Um, that I've definitely like I've nailed them now. Like they like it's like it's muscle memory at this point. But it all started with my first notebook. I am like a very organized, like list oriented perfectionist type person, and I have many a notebooks full of recipes, and like they have like timestamps. Like literally I will like write the texture and like what the thing looks like why it didn't come out right this time, like
Wow.
what I need to do next time. I mean, I don't really do it like as detailed anymore because I have those like base recipes down. But like when I experiment something new, I do that. And like all my old notebooks, just like probably hundreds of pages
Oh
like
my
that. I
God.
have so many. And like I used to be really into making sourdough.
Yeah.
Those were like serious notebook pages. I made like my friend Jamie. Um, I gave her my like sourdough method, and I literally made an entire log in her notebook so she could like do it all out. And it worked. But
Wow. But it was probably like so long. I mean, like bread is one of those things you have to be so exacting. And the
mhm.
situations like making bread at home is pretty challenging if you don't have a commercial kitchen or the right type of oven and stuff that you need. But organization, I mean, I just think that that's so funny because I mean, a lot like in like really serious restaurants, like everything is done in that method, like almost scientifically versus very scientifically versus just like I like taste it and figure it out. But you never had any experience in that, and you still have nailed it. But I love what has happened now because you're kind of at a point like you're still making cakes out of your house, but like you can see the demand has gotten kind of absurd because you'll be like, don't DM, like stop DMing. Like people are just not paying attention and like
Yeah.
just demanding cakes. And like it's gotten out of control because I mean, you have 52,000 Instagram followers at this point, and that is a huge following for just a person making cakes in their apartment. So
Yeah.
what is your day to day like now? Like how are you limiting quantities and like how do you control the demand and like keep your sanity? Because it looks pretty overwhelming.
Um, at first, it definitely was very overwhelming, and I went through a period of like, I don't know, almost kind of like depression from it.
From
Not
this all your
just like
success.
I
Yeah.
think that was like in the winter. Also, the weather always affects that. But like now, I've kind of gotten it under control of like I mean, I was also like trying to just like figure everything out. And I think everyone who owns a small business is like you don't know what the heck you're doing. Like you kind of just like figure it out as it's going on, you know?
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out good structure and work life and like social life balance, but now I kind of just like have people email me of dates and I kind of go around whatever people order. I mean, I take like some time off, but it's just like, you got to pay the bills. Especially New
Yeah.
York is
Oh my
expensive.
God. New York is so
So
expensive.
I just like really try to take on as many cakes as I can a week. Um, and then like I make mini cakes too during the week. And yeah, I would say I wouldn't like make over 15 in a week. That would be like a really crazy one if I was to do that, but I've done it before.
Oh my God. Have you thought about like, I mean, I have a small business myself, and there's the kind of this constant, I don't know, like debate where you're like, am I leaving money on the table? Should I try to scale it? Is it better to just charge more? Like these are conversations that I'm having all the time with myself, just trying to like you
Yeah.
said, nobody knows your business like you do. So you're just like, and also nobody knows what your like overall quality of life. And that's something that I like. The reason I don't work in professional kitchens anymore is because I was like, there's a quality of life there, but it's definitely centered around the restaurant and not your actual life. Like I was just sort of like a shell of a person on my days off because I'm like, I'm just I'm physically exhausted, and B, I don't have really time or energy for anything else. It's just sort of everything that I do. So now that I'm not in that world, I'm like trying to figure out how much do I want to work and like how much do I have to work? And then what is the smart thing to do when you have this kind of, it's not luck because you're certainly extremely talented, but I'm like, when something like this falls into your lap and like the sun is shining on you, it's like, what do you want to do? I'm sure there's people in your ear being like, you need to scale and you should open a place and like,
Yeah, I'm like, no.
no,
I'm like,
no.
not yet.
Yeah.
Not ready for that.
Yeah. So like where are you right now? And you're just like, I'm just gonna keep doing this and kind of and see where it goes and see how I feel and see if I like it, or do you have kind of plans for the next phase of it and how you want to
I literally like don't know. I've gotten asked that question a lot. I'm really just going with the flow at this point. Um, I totally agree with you how it's like it's difficult to say no, but
Yeah.
sometimes you know you really need to for mental health purposes because like you said like it is exhausting, especially when you're doing it all yourself.
Oh my God.
Like I work like every day, and if I'm not like physically working, I'm mentally working, you know?
Yep.
Like um but I really like don't know what I like maybe one day open something, but not right now. Like
Yeah.
maybe if there was like an investor moment, but like
Yeah.
not right now. I'd love to do more like like something for like magazine or film. I keep trying to say that on Instagram, but I haven't gotten any jobs booked, you know?
Yeah.
Or
Like
just like I mean, I worked an event recently and that was really fun and a different experience just because I'd never worked in a kitchen before.
yeah.
Um, but
I mean, that's
like
what I'm thinking. I'm like, if you had someone there like helping you or like kitting out your stuff, you could probably like just do more of the fun creative stuff and not have to be like measuring out. You know what I mean? 'Cause,
yeah,
like, it's so fucking hard to make a cake. Like, if you're listening at home and you've ever tried to make a cake, like that's actually one of my questions that I have for you. I'm like, what was the first cake you ever like have a memory of making? Was it a box cake? Was it like a regular cake? Did you just like find a recipe or? Because I feel like I remember early things that I made the first time where I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I feel like I have, I don't know, control. You're like you're a little kid and you're hanging out at your house and you make French toast and you're like, I just made myself food. Like I'm a hero. But if you've always been independent, like when did you first kind of like come into baking or like what was something that excited you early on?
well, I definitely like made, you know, boxed desserts when I was little. I remember my like very vividly the Ghirardelli chocolate chip brownies.
Yes. Oh
Like
my
I don't know
God.
why, like
So good.
my mom like always bought those and my friends and I would make them. But the most like prominent memory I have is this chocolate cake that my mom used to work at a bakery when she was like I don't know in her teens or whatever, and they had this chocolate cake. The bakery now like not good. Like it's not what it used to be.
But in its
Um
heyday, it was
but
killing.
yeah, and they had this chocolate cake. It's the Perry's Bakery chocolate cake. That's what we call it. Literally the best chocolate cake ever. That's what my like chocolate cake recipe is based off
Wow.
of. That so good. And my mom like would always make that cake. Just like
Wow.
chocolate cake with chocolate buttercream. But now we kind of like amp it up and do some like fun stuff to it. Um but that was like something my mom would always make. And I remember she would make that cake and I'd watch her use the stand mixer and I'd be scared of the stand mixer. I was like, "No, you can do that part." Like,
Yes.
I don't like I
Anyone
don't
would
want to
do it.
do that.
It's like a big
Um
machine.
yeah, but I don't know. I guess she kind of like helped me lose my fear of baking. And
Yeah,
then yeah, I don't know. It just kind of like I guess that's like my earliest memory.
that's so cool. I mean, I feel like everybody has like I just remember being because I have an incredible sweet tooth. Like I love savory food as well. Like it's kind of I just love all food, but I really really love something sweet, and it's just the appeal, the look of them. Like they're so enticing. They're so much more enticing, I think, than even savory food can be sometimes because it looks almost like a present or like a fancy little like thing you would buy in a store. Like it just looks so much more elevated. So I remember being really, really excited by baking as a kid. And it was also, there's not as much active, like you're not searing meat or like using a stove. Like
Yeah.
baking is kind of easy to get into kids' hands, but it's also like one of my earliest like formative memories because we would, my sisters and I, we would make these little like petit fours, the little like enrobed mini cakes, you know, with like
Mhm.
the cheesy little leaf and the rose on them, and they're like you would see them at a baby shower or some shit like that. And
Hmm.
it's to this day, I just thought about them the other day. Like I haven't thought about them in years because they were so out of style and like just kind of dated. But I thought about them the other day and I was like, whoa, like a fun take on that. I get more like you eat with your eyes first, and the cakes that you make and the style that you've developed just really, really blew my mind. Cause I'm like, I have been looking, like, I see cool cake designs. Or like, I mean, there's a whole fucking Netflix show that's like, is it cake? And I'm like, I hate this kind of stuff because I hate when there's so much fondant that I'm like, this is now sculpture. Like, I still like respect, it's cool. But I'm like,
Yeah.
but it's not a cake. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
this is something totally different. Like, and I hate the way fondant tastes and feels. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a weird. I'm like, technically it's edible, but do I want to eat it? But when I see your cakes, I'm just like, man, that's true artistry. So I'm like, did you want to do, or are you an artistic person in outside of communications or things that you studied in school?
I would say so. I never thought I would actually like consider myself to be an artist, which I've had to like
Self-implied.
come to terms with when people are like, "Oh, you're an artist." I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, but I'm like, "Wait, yeah, I actually am if I really think about it."
Yeah,
Um, but I guess I don't know. I think food is an art form, so I guess if you consider that like to be the artistic part, then yeah.
totally. No, totally. I think it is. I mean, I think you have to have. I think when you talk about artistry and food, it's like just being able to create something that looks different today when everyone can see everything that everyone's doing. That's just a feat in itself, because so many people, quote unquote, get inspired by something they see, and so it's really hard to like kind of separate yourself in any real way other than like a niche in your community or something like that. But I think yours just sort of broke the mold. They definitely caught my eye in a way that I was just like, I can't believe she did that. They're so good. So talk to me about the flavors of the cake, because I've never had the honor of eating one. So talk to me about kind of how you combine the flavors and what you're thinking. Like, are you thinking about, do you write it down and kind of brainstorm it on paper first, or does it just sort of organically happen with what you have around you?
Well, everything is very seasonally focused. I will like not make something, like if someone wants like a pumpkin cake
Yeah, no.
or something, like that's not happening in the
Yeah.
summer,
Yeah.
respectfully. And I don't know, I really love going to the farmer's market or foraging and like seeing what I can find, and then, you know, just like kind of basing stuff around that. So like right now there's so much stone fruit in season, and also like it of be like the products being high quality. Like I go out of the way to really make sure I buy high quality, like if I'm using a dairy product, I'll go and get it at the farmer's market, or I'll, like I'm buying fruit um, from the farmer's market. So I really like try to do that. But yeah, it's basically just like very seasonally focused. And for like flavor combinations wise, I kind of go off what, I mean, it's all kind of in my head, but like I just kind of go off what I think would taste good together, and what's in season. And then when someone is ordering a cake, I have a whole little preference sheet. And I just kind of have them send me some, like, I say, like, what are some fruits, desserts, spices, herbs you like? And I don't know, people will send me like a few things. And then based off of like what they send, what's in season, and then like things that I think are cool that I want to work with, I'll just come up with some flavor combinations through that.
It's
Yeah.
so cool. I know, I think I saw this somewhere where you were like, I don't like to make the same cake twice. And do you get people that are like, I want to copy this exact cake? And do you have to be like, look, that was back in April and that cake is impossible right now. Like,
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
do
there's
have
just
to
the
say that.
potential to like, just from working with the general public, I'm like, God, there's probably so many like boundaries you have to set with people when they're just like, I want this. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah, some people do say that, but it's also like every week I work with different flavors based off like what people are doing for orders. So if I have like a ton of orders and I already have like 3 cake bases set up, it's like I physically like can't make that many,
Right.
like
No,
different
sure.
types. So I guess that's also like a way of narrowing down the flavors of cakes, but it's like sometimes it's like I don't want to make the matcha cake again, Like let's
Yeah.
do something fun and new with like these nectarines that just came into season, Or
Yeah.
like, black raspberries at the farmer's market. Like they're only here for a few weeks. We might as well take advantage of them and get to use them.
It's so cool. It makes it so much more special, and it kind of keeps things ever changing and evolving. And like, even from going to your website, I'm like, the style of cake continues to evolve. And that's something that's really cool about what you do, is that I feel like you're just like you said, going with the flow and kind of doing what comes natural. And I think a lot of people out there, when they're in the food space or they're like trying to get started in food, they like feel really compelled to like think of what people will want and then try to emulate that. And that's one of the reasons I'm so drawn to your work and the stuff that I see, because obviously I haven't gotten to eat them, but I'm like, it feels so much more of a pure, like, this is what I'm making. Like, do you like it or not? Like, you kind of take it
Yeah,
or leave it, because it's
basically.
not really for, and I think there should just be more of that, because like I said, I think a lot of people in the food space call it getting inspiration from something, but they'll really just see something trending. Like, I see it in restaurants. I'm sure you do in New York too. It's like all of a sudden it's like everybody's opening a pizza place this year, and like next year everybody's opening a Spanish tapas place. Like, the trends come and go.
Mhm.
And cakes are like a space that I feel like has just been so stale for so long. So it's just really cool to see what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I hope someday you'll come to Charleston and do a pop up. It would be really fun. I feel like a lot of people on Instagram like bug you about that. They're like, come to my city, because you don't ship cakes, right? Like, if you're listening right now and you're from anywhere outside of New York City, like you're out of luck. You're not going to be able to get one of these cakes. But next time you're in New York, where are you popping up? Like, kind of more with more consistency.
Well, I do pick up in Brooklyn.
Nice.
So, yeah, and then like occasionally I'll do a pop-up either sometimes in Manhattan, it depends. But I don't know. It all depends on like what I'm gonna do next, which I don't really know. I'm taking a break from pop-ups for the rest of the summer, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe sometime in the fall. I'd love to go to Los Angeles though, if anyone wants to fly me out. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there.
You heard it here first. Actually, you know a lot of people out there that would probably be very excited to fly you out. We need to make that happen. And then if you are in the area, you can just find you on Instagram, click on the email address, and then submit a request for a cake, right? Or how does that
Yeah.
work? What's the
You
move?
just send me an email with like the date you're interested in picking up in the subject, and then I'll send all my cake information. But I am taking a much needed vacation
Yes.
until about August 15th.
Okay, but
So,
this is the other thing that I think is so, like, this is, I feel like, the new model, like the way food is changing, like people are tired of getting burnt out. And I'm like, I have noticed from following you on social that there was one day where you did a cake pickup and you're like, sorry, I wasn't there. I was in the walk-in. I think it was the day that Roe versus Wade was overturned. So everyone's having like a mental breakdown.
oh,
And
yep,
you
that
were
was I did a pop-up that day.
and you were like, I'm sorry, I'm in the walk-in, like having a panic attack. And I think that kind of transparency and also that kind of like bravery, just to be like, I'm taking the fucking summer off. Like, your work will still be there. I think in food, a lot of people in restaurant industry like feel like if they dare take a break, or if they dare say like, hey, I'm not doing great, that their career is over, that their career is going to suffer. You know what I mean? So I've loved watching, like, the pandemic was heartbreaking for restaurants, don't get me wrong, but it was very empowering for a lot of people to be like, look, if you're talented and you have a passion for cooking, you'll be able to monetize that. And there's so many more creative ways to do that now than the traditional, like, go study under this person, get this thing on your resume, stage here, work for free, burn yourself out. Like, I think you're such a model of like what is possible, because there's a million different ways, and not even just doing what you did, but I mean in general, of like kind of breaking out and being like, no, I want to work when I want to work. And that's just something that not a lot of people in the food and beverage have been able to feel like strong enough or empowered enough to do. And I love that that's something that you're really like straightforward about in your social media and seemingly in person as well. Because yeah, you should
Thank you.
take the summer off, and more people should feel inspired to be like, yo, take a fucking vacation. Like you can still come back and crush it when you get back to it. You're obviously a lot younger than me. Well, I'm 35. You just graduated college. So when Chloe Savini messaged you, or whoever messaged you to order this cake, were you like, who is this? Because you're like younger, or did you know her? Were you a fan? Were you like, this is a cool moment? Or was it kind of like, yeah, it's just another order, and wow, they happen to be this person?
Well, I like knew who she was, but like I know that she was in the movie Kids. I've never seen that movie before, but
It's
I
terrifying.
knew that she was like very famous.
Yeah.
And like my friends have obviously like talked about her before, so I just like woke up from a DM from her one day and I was like, what the heck? And then I sent it to my friends and they were like, Aimee, what the heck? This is kind of a big deal. And I was like, oh. um but yeah,
That's so
so that
funny.
was cool. She was really sweet.
It's just, I mean, that's like a very cool thing to have happen. And was that sort of a turning point, or were things sort of already like, I think a lot of times people, myself included, get confused about like overnight success. People look at someone that like has success and they're like, oh, this just happened to them, like just like that. And you're like, no, actually, I've been working, making stuff and like figuring out your style and how you like to cook and what you like to cook, whether it's cakes or not. In the zine, I did go deep into the archives and I saw a chickenless pot pie that was really funny. It was like chopped up chickenless chicken nuggets and like just wacky shit that I think that is what is so funny and cool about you, is that you're just kind of just coming at it from whatever way you want to. And so it's not an overnight success, and one celebrity order doesn't like make or break your business. But was there a definite like, oh my God, all of a sudden when that happened, you got more orders? Or was it like some people say they'll get press like that and then it doesn't really affect their business? And so I'm always curious, like on the inside, how did it, something like having a celebrity order a cake, like affect your business money wise?
That definitely was like very good for me, the publicity I got from that. But I think I was already kind of like doing, like things were already happening
Totally.
before that. I think the turning point kind of was when I got featured in the New York Times,
Whoa.
because like my photo was like on the cover in like the bottom
What?
area, like when it like shows like all the features. Like there was like a photographer that came to my apartment and like took pictures of some of the cakes
Wow.
I was making that week. So that was like kind of something that um
How did they find, because
was
of the
good.
pop-ups you were doing? They were like, this is something new and fresh, or they were like me and saw them and were like, what the fuck are these cakes? How did someone make a new looking cake like this? That's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was like just like someone that followed me on Instagram, and then we ended up being from the same town, which was like the
What?
journalist, which was like so random.
Did she
Um,
know the bakery your mom worked at?
oh no, that my mom like worked in Massachusetts.
Okay,
I'm from
okay. I
New
was like,
Hampshire.
whoa, full
But
circle.
yeah, no, it was kind of like a crazy connection. But I guess like once I did the New York Times article, I kind of started getting noticed in other magazines, and that was like good publicity. Um, and And yeah, I've had like other like celebrity orders in the past, but I think that Chloe's cake was definitely like that was like a big thing for my business for sure. So thank
I'm
you,
ha-
Chloe, for ordering
Yeah,
that
shout out to
cake for
you,
me.
Chloe, and thanks for getting married. And I wish you all the best. I think that that's just a really interesting question, because I see a lot of brands or like people that are selling stuff that will get things featured or get things in the hands of other people, and then I'm like, but my question is always like, but did it help your business really? Did it really like help? Because that would be the worst thing if you got like the publicity and it didn't actually come down to money in your business. You know what I mean? But that's great to know that it did for you. And I think that a lot of times if people are like, I don't know. I know there's a million different ways to do it, but I'm like, just putting your product out there and being kind of consistent in what you do and not trying to be everything to everyone is probably really good advice. And on that note, is there any advice that you would give to somebody if they're like feeling inspired by your story, like what would you tell them and how to get started in the food space?
Well, I think I would say shout out to Instagram because
That's
I
IG.
wouldn't be where I was without Instagram. Um, but also, like, I think people need to realize that what I do, like, don't don't like glamorize the fact that I'm like that I have a following on Instagram, you know, because a lot of people just think like I want to be an influencer and like I want to post pictures and that's what I want to be my job and like that's like 10% of it. Like I said earlier, how I work literally 24/7. Like, not only am I running a business baking cakes, which is already a full-time job, but then I'm doing Instagram on top of that, which is literally like another full-time job.
Yes.
And like Instagram's like very draining if you've
Yes.
ever like whoever works in social media, like everyone I know is always like my brain feels fried at the
Yeah.
end of the day and I'm like heck yeah it does. So I think people just need to realize that it's like a lot of work. And it's also not even just like, you know, like the Instagram and the baking. It's like there's a whole other side of this too, like the emails, the finances, like the legal stuff. Like there's so much stuff you have to do, and if you're not on top of all that, like it's not going to work. Like you really need to be organized and like need to know that this is what you want to do, not just like a
A
I think I'm
whim.
going to start this little company.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
I think that's great advice because it really is like even just making a few. I think during the pandemic, I made burnt Basque cheesecakes, and people were like, "I want one of those." And so I started. I was like, "Well, I could make one for you," and I was humbled immediately by like. How do you get cake boxes and why do you have to buy 500 of them? And like, how do
Yeah.
I lift them and where do I store them? And like, by the end of the day, I'm like, where am I going to get that much cream cheese? And like, just so much shit that was like, oh, okay, this doesn't actually equal 4 cakes. This is like 4 1/3 of a cheesecake. And now I got to like do math. Like, there is so
Now I
much
gotta do math.
that's involved in like make it and then hope that it turns out right and like being able to say like no this isn't good enough or like I have to start over, and those are the most crushing moments. And by the end of the day I was like you know where your kidneys are in your back, they just like hurt, like you're just sore and you're like I am
Yeah.
so fucking tired. So I think you're right, it's like not glamorizing it, but also like just understanding that it's so much more than you see. And that's the double-edged sword of like social media. Like I'm stoked because that's how I find cool people like you, but at the same time it is such a drain and it's a constant like I just wrestle with it all the time because I'm like, is this even worth it? Is this worth the amount of time that it's taking away from my life and the real people in my life, or the work that I actually have to do to like live, you know?
Yeah.
So that I think that's a very honest take and very much good advice. Aimee, what else? Is there anything else that you've got? You're taking a very much needed break. Are you going to France because you're Aimee France? Or are you just gonna
I
hang?
wish. No, I'm going to visit my parents in New Hampshire.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, I'm staying there for a little while. You know, we're gonna go camping, we're gonna go to
Oh,
the
fun.
beach. And I actually like randomly got a wedding cake order for someone in New Hampshire beginning of August, so I kind of got to extend my vacation a little longer.
That's
And
nice.
I'm very excited to make a wedding cake in a big kitchen.
Oh my god.
Like, I'm so hyped to do that. It's going to be so much fun. And I really can't wait to go foraging in New
Yeah.
Hampshire. That will be so much fun.
It will. I'm from a little small town in South Carolina. It's like a country, like it's just a bunch of farmland, and it's just so fun to like get out of the city and like be in nature and just see what's around. Because I didn't understand, like I don't know. I just felt like there was nothing that grew that I could eat or that you could forage when I lived there. And then I spent some time in Copenhagen at Noma, and I was like, they're just eating tree bark. Like they can literally do it. You can eat anything as long as it's not
Literally.
poisonous. Like please don't go out and poison yourself. But I am saying like get out even in your like semi-rural neighborhood. It's really fun to see what you can find. And
No, yeah,
Vermont
totally.
or New Hampshire is going to be like stunning for that because that's a good time. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm so happy that you did this, and yeah, if you want to check out her cakes, I can't recommend it enough. It's Yungkombucha420, and it's YUNG and then kombucha 420. Please don't DM her, okay? Please email her like a civilized person.
For
DM,
cake orders. You
yes.
can DM me if you have a question, not regarding cakes though.
Okay. If you have something nice that you want to say or you want to give her a compliment, you can do that. But no cake order questions. And yeah, if you ever are out in LA and you want to fly Aimee out, she's open to it. So let's just put that out there into the universe. And
We're
maybe
manifesting.
yeah, let's do it. And if you ever find yourself wanting to head down to Charleston, I know a really, really fun place where we could do a pop up, and I would love to hang. And next time in New York, I'll hit you up.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so
But
much.
yes, thank you for having me.
No, you're the best. It's super cool. Good luck with everything. And yeah, I'm really proud of you. I think anybody that's working that hard, like you gotta be bold enough to take care of yourself too. So I love that was something that you're adamant about. And I wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Je laisserai un mot sur le frigo. On déciderait de se faire la malle. Ta famille, les amis.